We're going to create a working sketch today, and this one's going to have the dimensions of what we plan to build. Let's prep our paper. We start with like a tri-fold, except for we only do folding on one side. Think of it as like going into an envelope. And then we're going to fold up the bottom for future glaze colors. About 1.5 inches, that's about up to my knuckle for me. And I'm only going to crease the left-hand side. And then we label it so we know what's going to go where. This is going to be for our assembly pieces later, and in this case we can only use coils or pinch, and so everything drawn here should just look like a simple coil or pinch. And then on the left hand side we are going to do a full drawing of what we plan to build, and always put a little explanation of what I'm building. I'm going to do an elephant, and it's a functional bowl over there. And in the future I'm going to glaze this, so I got to plan that out and leaving spot for that in the future. I'm going to start sketching, and the goal is that it's large enough to fill this area. I definitely have sped up this video, and you're going to see it's going to get pretty fast in some of these areas. When sketching, you are always drawing super lightly, and you'll add notes to help explain what you're doing. I have a tail on mine. I can't draw it in the back, so I put a note that this tail that I did off to the side will be in the back later. Once I've done my initial kind of sketching and laying stuff out, I'll go back in and I'll give the items more of the proper form that I do want them to be in the future. And I do want this to look as three-dimensional as possible. Look there, I'm smudging my paper. I'm going to protect by putting a piece of paper in between me and my drawing. Once you kind of get your basic idea done, go ahead and start erasing some lines you don't want. And then ultimately, you're going to just crisp up your real lines, right? You don't have to erase everything. It's still a sketch. It's a working sketch, but you do want yourself and anybody else who's looking at it to know what the real lines are. You should label all the parts. So we have to have coils and pinch in this. So I'm labeling my coils, and I'm giving little descriptions about my plan for building. As the person that's sketching and building, while you're sketching, you're actually trying to also think, how am I making this? So the requirement for this was 4 different types of coils, and I just counted, and I do have 4. But I think I want a few more, and I also have to have raised relief in this project. So I'm going to add a couple extra coils to get some raised relief on this piece with little tiny coils for wrinkles in my elephant. We do also have to have pattern and sunk relief or indented relief, so I'm also going to include some pattern on the interior of my bowl. Notice I'm always labeling so that I can explain myself better. At this point, our sketch should look just like the initial sketches. This is how much detail should have been in your initial sketch. Now I'm going to go farther. I need to figure out how big is this thing going to be. So I pulled out my initial bowl. We did make bowls, so I'm going to pull that out, and I'm using that to get started. And so it has certain sizes, and that's where I'm going to start. Mine is 4.25 wide by it is 2.5 tall. Now I decide, do I want it to be taller? Because I could. We know that we could add coils and make it taller, add coils to make it flare out or flare in. I think I'm happy with what I have. Next, though, I want to make sure that I am putting dimensions on all the parts. My legs have a height. My legs have a width, right? There is going to be space between the bowl and the ground. So I need to be really thinking, again, I plan to build this. What are sizes? It's going to have a tail. It's a curved tail. Hard to measure that with a ruler, so I just grabbed a piece of yarn to kind of guesstimate, like how long do I want it to be. I left my finger there, and then I'm going to measure that piece of yarn for how long that tail is probably going to be, and I came up with about 6 inches. When we're doing measurements, they don't have to be exact, but you should have a general idea of an ish range. I'm going to build something and it's going to be in this range, right? So use your ruler, use the measurements. We go with, inches. For this project, nobody should be so large that we need to use feet, but those little quotation marks, those signify an inch. Next, after this, we're going to really plan the building and draw our assembly pieces. But there's no need to rush. This should take about 15, 20 minutes, maybe 25, so just enjoy.